Hey everyone, welcome to the UFO Hub live stream. Today's guest is going to be Brad Johnson. Years ago, when I was scouring the web trying to find some information about Bashar, I came across this channeling by Oneness, and it was very informative, exactly what I was looking for, and very much enlightening. And so I've subscribed and been a subscriber ever since, and I'm very excited that I will be actually talking to Brad today. So you're probably going to hear me say this several times throughout the show, but this time you don't have to scour the web. You can basically go in the description below and check out all the websites and everything that Brad does and everything that Brad has to offer. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome Brad. Brad, thanks for being on. I appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Well, what I basically wanted to just ask you to go a little bit into your background information. How did you even get into this, to even begin channeling and then to do what you do today?
Yeah, it goes back into the year 2008. So I've been doing this now for almost 13 years. It's actually 13 years this August. So back in 2008, I was just getting a lot more into looking into the interest of extraterrestrials, looking more so into what is really going on. So, back when I was a kid, I was always very interested in sci-fi and thinking about, looking at other planets and seeing what was beyond that. But I never really took it very seriously. I just always kind of looked at it in an entertainment value. But I was doing a lot of work, and I had this idea for a novel, and I wanted to look very, very deeply into what is the actual truth about ETs and about beings beyond our world. So I just started doing a lot of research, kind of like how you did, to find Bashar, or find myself. And so I looked up information from psychics, from intuitives, from channels, from Black Ops community personnel, etc. And there were people who had a lot of personal contacts with star family beings, as they would term them. And basically seeing these beings as very spiritual, right? They believed in a one infinite creator. And then through meditation, you were able to connect with them. And through this was all very, very new to me. It was very fascinating as well. So I decided, instead of writing for this novel, I put the novel aside. And I started just going to my local library, and I took out a book called Learn How to Meditate. And I just read it from front cover to back cover. It wasn't some extraordinary book. It was like your typical run-of-the-mill guided meditation kind of book. But I was just fascinated by it, because it would give you like a lot of visualizations, basically telling you to really focus on the mind, focus on the third eye, for example. And as I would do meditation, it was the first time I ever did meditation. I went very, very deep. Everything felt very, very vivid. I would go into like these beautiful realities, these beautiful domains. And I would see like these floating crystal balls with illuminating energy coming out of them. The funny thing is, as I imagined myself touching those crystals, I could feel like energy was just flowing through my hands physically. And so I could feel a lot of rushing of energy coming into myself as I was doing a lot of these meditative practices. And as I'd go to sleep at night, I would start waking up knowing things I did not know before. So overnight, I would start getting a lot of downloads. And through this, I would start looking a lot more into universal information, start looking into the nature of the universe, about other civilizations. It was quite broad, and just a lot of impressions for me to look into different things, from metaphysical information, extraterrestrial information, connections to kind of like yogic science, astrology, energy healing, everything. So this really began my journey to become a lot more familiar with metaphysics, spirituality, consciousness, and this eventually got me into channeling, which is something that really, really fascinated me, because I too was subscribed to quite a few channelers on YouTube as well too, and I would just kind of get an idea about how they would channel, and then I created my own social network. I created just kind of like a Ning network, and I started bringing a lot of psychics and intuitives into this network. They signed up for free, and I'd start talking to them, because a lot of them were channelers and psychics and intuitives. And I said, what is it that you do? How do you connect with these beings? What is it? What's your process? So I kind of talked to them, and they all had their own different ways. Some just say, I just go get quiet. I feel like I'm connecting to this consciousness in the background as soon as I go into a state of peace. So I just kind of looked into these things and said, okay, well, they have this way, that way, this way, that way. And I just started to amalgamate my own kind of method as I got into channeling. So I kind of looked at it firstly like a journalist, and then I got into it myself. I said, enough of me researching this. I actually want to start doing this. So as I started doing channeling, I went into basically what they call automatic writing or channeled writing, and I started writing down all this flowing information that would come through me. And I would just connect to all different forms of intelligences. I would connect to a star, basically, and I would connect to the intelligence of that star, and I would just start getting information flowing through. I'd start connecting with a lot of these different collectives, and information would come through. And it wasn't until December of 2008 that a friend of mine, who was also a channel, said, well, Brad, I was tuning in, and I felt like you had very, very strong connections to the star of Sirius A. And I feel like there is an entity there that is trying to get in touch with you. They wanted to tell me to tell you to look into that. So I agreed, and I went into my channeled writing state. And as I tuned into Sirius A, I just started feeling the flow, right? It's like if I had a piece of paper right here, I could just feel the flow coming in. I am Adronis of Sirius, right? And that was my introduction to him. So he referred to himself as a fifth density consciousness, 297 years in the future. He came back at this time to assist me in my own spiritual evolution. And as I spiritually evolve, I will work to help others spiritually evolve together with me. And through this agreement that him and I have, we would work together to bring that forward. And is this something that I'd want to do? So I was very much in agreement with this. But of course, doing a lot of all this channeled information and doing all this channeling work and energy healing and meditation, right? I was married at the time. And my ex-wife was looking at me like I had three heads. She thought I was just completely losing it. So I just said, you know what? I have to make sure that I'm really getting all this information, that I'm not going crazy, that people aren't thinking I'm a lunatic, right? So I just went out onto my porch, and I just kind of looked up at the stars. I closed my eyes and said, you know, if there's any ships, there's anybody out there that can just let me know that you are real, that this is actually happening, that I am channeling you, and that I'm not losing my mind, just let me know. Do something just to let me know that I'm not going crazy here. After a few seconds of saying that, a star wiggled out of the sky and just shot right across the sky. Lasted about 30 seconds. My ex-wife actually stepped outside the porch and she saw it as well too. I said, I told you it's real. I prayed for that. And she was dumbfounded. She didn't know what to say or what to do. It's like, oh my God, my husband has completely lost his mind. So that was really my journey into connecting with Adronis at that time. Shortly after, a couple months passed, and I left my ex-wife and went on my own because I just kind of realized the kind of relationship it was, and it wasn't for me to continue doing. And it was just about me going on my own, leaving kind of behind like a toxic marriage, and being on my own and having this ability. There were many times where I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do with this. I said, yes, I have this information. I have the ability to channel. I have the ability to go in and talk to this other consciousness that's coming through me, but I really don't know what to do. So it required me to do a lot of sitting, do a lot of just kind of centering myself with this information. And what it led to was me just working together with others. Because again, this incredible information would come through me. And I just started offering services with this. So it started off free, then it started off by donation, and then I got into fixed rates with it. And just years passed, and it started to get a lot more popular. But in the very beginning, there was just a few people who I was connecting with, and I just kind of slowly crept up the ladder to doing this a lot more. So what you see on the YouTube channel that I have is years and years and years of that buildup of helping people all over the world, thousands of people, because the majority of my sessions have been with channeling Adronis, bringing him through, and people from all walks of life have come to me, and they've talked about everything, right? I don't think there's a single subject that Adronis and I have not discussed in some particular way. It has been that vast. It has been that insightful. It has been that broad. So to this very day, I still channel Adronis through private sessions. I still do events, but I'm also going into a lot more greater depth pertaining to the nature of consciousness. So it's kind of walking a lot more of a deeper path, but I am still working and channeling with Adronis along the way.
Boy, yeah, there's so many avenues and directions that I want to take this, but I figured let's just stick a little bit more to the process. Let's just say if somebody wants to learn on their own, like you mentioned, so there's really not one specific way that you can approach. It's would you say it's just whatever feels right for you to kind of take that approach?
Yes, there's as many ways as there are people on the planet as there are stars in the sky, right? You have an infinite amount of ways to connect whatever it is that you wish to connect to. But really, it really just comes down to the idea that you really just want to connect to the highest that there is, and that would be God, right? You want to, you'll start off, a lot of people I talk to will want to talk to their spirit guides, they'll want to talk to their angels, they do want to talk to ETs on other worlds and other dimensions and so forth, and we do that. But at times they will come back to me and say, this is fun, this is great, I enjoy talking to these guides, but I feel like I really want to fulfill myself. I really want to go into that state of inner discipline. And this is where I've been moving myself a lot more too. I said really what that entails is just being able to become humble. It's understanding that you want to move into eternal happiness. And that eternal happiness comes through the self, right? So yes, we can certainly talk to a lot of different guides. We can talk to ETs. We can talk to them all the time, but really they are trying to encourage us as well too, is go into your source, go into your heart, go into yourself. And that is what's going to bring you the greatest happiness, right? So they too are just here to assist in many ways, because again, I've talked to many people who have talked to all different kinds of beings, whether you're looking at star family humanoids, whether you're looking at reptilians, whether you're looking at greys, whether you're looking at hybrids, whether you're looking at avians, whether you're looking at felines, whether you're looking at, again, just pure balls of light, like plasma balls, etc. It goes on. There is no shortage of intelligence that exists through consciousness. But again, we just, in our own way, formulate these relationships with these beings, because it is very much an internal process. A lot of people want to have physical contact. They want to basically meet in a baseball field or something of that nature, or a soccer field, and say, just come down at 10 o'clock at night, bring your ship down, and I'll come and meet you. Right? As exciting as that is, you would be running for your life. Okay? Not because you're scared of the event, but because many of these beings are on such a very advanced spiritual level. They have evolved themselves to such a deep level that we simply couldn't take their energy, right? Their energy is so profound. Adronis has said this many times, right? Because he has had people ask him for some type of personal contact. And there's been times where he's delivered, but he's delivered more so internally, right? It's coming through within yourself, right? You may see a light, you may start to see a projection of his face, you may start to hear a voice, right? There's been times too where I've had visions of him, and I've had apparitions of him coming in as well too. It's quite rare, but it has happened. But basically, the majority way of how I channel him is it's kind of like tuning into a radio station. So it's like you have a radio right here, and you're just turning the dial, and you're just tuning into a certain frequency. And it is through that frequency where his information starts flowing through. So channeling him now for almost 13 years, it's a very, very natural thing for me to do. But people who do want to learn how to do inner ET communication, this is really the way to do it. You're doing it through mediumship, you're doing it through channeling. You can do it through dream time, through lucid dreaming as well too. There's many different ways, because that's actually the way that they prefer, because it's not jeopardizing anyone's free will. It's not putting anyone in danger. It's not putting you in danger. It's not putting them in danger. And they want to communicate with you through this kind of telepathic, mental, internal level.
You know, Brad, I'm glad you touched on that, because I have this on Wednesdays, open lines, and it's just interacting with the audience. And sometimes I'm not sure if you're familiar with my story, but you know, the experiences that I've had, and I often try to explain to them. I said it's like for me, it was all about first changing slowly but surely these different belief systems that you have, you know, and that's what starts very slowly, and then you kind of build up on that to each thing you resolve, every challenge, every difficulty is like this different shift of energy, you know, to where now you have you know, you're more in tune with yourself. And basically what I then get to the point is that there's a different energy between, you know, their state of being and ours is so different, to where I like to very much use Bashar's explanation, is that psychotic shock, you know, because it's so difficult to, you know, it's like you know, been wanting contact for so long, and wanting to just basically you know, have it physical, because that's what's everything about, right? In this world, we're always physical, you know. So okay, I'm gonna do this physically, because somehow in people's mindsets, not all, obviously not everyone, but a few, that, you know, they're like, oh well, if, you know, you could be dreaming this if you're, you know, going to sleep and have out of body experience, right? If you close your eyes and meditate, they're like, well, you know, it could just be your imagination. I mean, there's always some way to bring it around to invalidate it. And so I was like, all right, let's stick with this physical. You know, I think I can overcome this. And you, like you said, I mean, you know, you will shit your pants, you know. And it's not what you said, it's what I'm saying, you know. Not to, you know, you don't want to attribute the profanity to your statement. So anyway, and a lot of people that are just in the beginning, they just always think it's this, hey, hello, come on down, let's shake hands. When do you think this, I guess, enough energy would have shifted, or is it, I guess, individually based on all our individual work, that if enough energy has changed, a physical contact would be possible? And then how long do you foresee that to possibly take? Would it be 5 to 10 years from now? Do you have anything to say regarding that?
Yeah, it doesn't really work that way. That's not how it works. Really, the whole idea is that it is a very, very rare thing for a person to have a physical contact with a star family member. This is basically what I refer to them. I don't refer to them as aliens, or sometimes not even as ETs as well too. ETs is kind of the middle ground, but it's really, all you're really doing is you're connecting with family. You're connecting with another version of yourself. It's you. You're connecting with you. And I say that because you're the only one here, right? When I say that you're the only one here, you are the only observer. You are the only perceiver in your reality. So when you are basically attempting to connect with what you feel is another being in that way, all you're doing is you're just connecting to this other reflection of yourself, and you're seeing what this represents through you. Everybody is different. There's no real generic protocol or generic formula that one can use to say, oh, well, Brad had this connection with the Adronis, and he was able to connect with the Adronis within a few months, so maybe the same thing will happen to me. Nope. No, it won't. You have your own journey. You are a unique soul, right? So you have your own journey with that. But basically, from what I have discovered from doing thousands of sessions with people, the idea of physical contact is the absolute last resort to basically getting someone's attention, to getting them to start doing the work that they have come here to do. It's basically the last thing on the list to a wake-up call, right? So basically, if you can already be awakened to the realization of what you're here to do, just through a dream, or just through an internal experience, an inner experience through mind, then they've done their job, and that's all they're here to do. They are not here to be buddies with you. They are not here to be friends. They're not here to come down and drink coffee with you and drink tea and have biscuits or anything of that nature. That is not why they are here. When we have signed up to be here on the earth plane, we have come here to be the ground crew, because a lot of us who are on the planet come from these civilizations, right? We have what's known as stasis bodies, right? A lot of us. And I've come across this quite often in other in my own sessions as well too, is that there are people, whether it's man, woman, child, whatever, that are connecting with me, and they said, I just feel like when I go to sleep at night, I feel like I'm entering another body. They'll say this to Adronis, and Adronis will tap into them, saying, yes, this is what's known as a stasis body, which means that your own star family body, or ET body, is in a stasis pod, and it is basically in a state of suspended animation, and that you have disembodied yourself from that body, right? There's basically, the soul leaves the body, and it's contained in preservation in the stasis pod and suspended animation. That soul goes down to earth and incarnates into a human being, and has the lifetime that they are meant to live here as a human being. And they may find out through a reading or through a channel or what have you, whatever the situation is that wakes them up, saying, yeah, you have another body that's in stasis, and it's on board a spaceship, and it's in the star system. And when the time comes, when this life comes to a conclusion, you'll have done your work that you are here to do on this planet, and you'll go back into that body again, right? So that is what's commonly known as a stasis body. But the idea of people wanting a physical contact, right? Basically, one of the big reasons why people want that is because they feel that they have the ultimate proof, and they can show that to everybody else. But that's not going to work, right? You will have skeptics with everything. You think, oh, I'll get this on video. You'll have skeptics with that. I'll have it on audio. You'll have skeptics with that. I'll have a really great story to tell. You'll have skeptics with that, right? A lot of people just want to have these first physical contacts to basically try and comply with their ego's demands, right? And that doesn't work. So basically, like I said, you're right, because it does throw people into psychotic shock when you're actually laying in your bed and maybe there's a gray standing right over you, right, putting his head right into your face. I've had people like that. They come to me and talk and say, Brad, I had these grays that came into my room. They've walked right through the room. My body was levitating, it was bringing me up, and before I know it, I was all of a sudden on a ship, right? And I've had women who have had hybrid children through the grays as well too. Like I said, it's very, very vast. But the idea of, in that sense, of having a physical contact, like I said, is at the bottom of the list. It is last resort. It's just the idea of they're showing themselves, not to take focus away from you and onto them, but they're showing you this is what you're here to do because we're watching you behind the scenes. And we're just giving you this quick glimpse of ourselves so that you can wake up and that you remember this is what you're here to do on the planet. You may be a healer, you may be a dancer, you may be a public speaker, whatever it may be. You may be running for office, whatever it is. There's this experience that comes through that is getting you to jolt yourself out of your reality and wake yourself up so that you can carry out and do the tasks that you want to do. So like I said, having it in a physical contact is extremely rare.
No, I totally agree. Can we go a little bit into the what you were mentioning about that there's only you in this reality? So is it basically for those that are more, let's say they always want to meditate and go to these different, different dimension, different levels, all these things. It's just, so in that essence would be everything is just an exploration of yourself then, correct?
Yeah, of course. Everything
Okay.
is mind, everything is matter, really, in that way.
And so is it just basically kind of, not that there's an, I don't want to say that there's an end goal, but is it the point for you to just realize that you're just interacting with yourself and what it is that you're doing here, and then how would they exactly, besides and just kind of pushing you to go down that direction, will there be then basically some kind of interaction to where you see them as yourself? Is that, what I'm trying to say is that if everything is about you, then what is kind of like the progression? I mean, sure, sometimes people, like you said, they just want to be here to, let's say they worked in office, all day long, and what they really sign up for to do is to let's say be a long distance marathon runner, and sometimes you need to jolt them to go into that direction, whatever they need to overcome. But let's say we're just sticking to this spiritual journey. What do you? Oh, I think I lost you there. Okay, are you
Oh,
back?
can you hear me? Yeah,
Yep, I can hear you
can you hear
now.
me?
Yep,
All right, sorry. Yeah, my
that's good.
internet
At least we
glimpsed it.
didn't lose connection here. What was the last part that you heard?
Yeah, it was just about the idea of people who are looking to be a long distance marathon runner,
Right.
for example.
So, and is there basically, is that the whole point, and that eventually they might not even have an experience to interact with an ET in physical or otherwise?
But see, there's nobody outside of you that can make that decision. You see, you're the only one here, and as you're the only one here, what you say really does go. But you'll notice that you keep going into a certain path you know is not of yourself, and you know that feeling when you're not doing what is natural to you. You're going to get irritated. You're going to get disgusted. There's just going to be a lot of these resistances that are going to come that way. So because it's yourself telling you that's not where I'm supposed to go, right? I'm not supposed to go that way. I'm not supposed to keep searching for these ETs in that sense, or keep looking outside of myself for answers. It's saying that if I truly want to make contact, I have to go within myself. I have to put myself in my own spotlight. I have to go into the self and realize that if I have connections with the Pleiadians, if I have connections with Arcturus or Andromeda or what have you, that all of that exists inside of me. And if I start focusing inwards on that and start realizing who I really am, I will see all these assortment of different degrees of consciousness of myself, whether they are in some type of physical form or what have you, to let myself know all of this is happening within me. All of these beings are a part of me in that way. And so when I start to go within myself, the answers start to come. So again, a lot of us just chase. We chase our own tail. It's basically, if you're looking in the outside reality for answers, it's like a dog chasing its own tail. It's not going to work. It's not going to progress in that way. Your key capability is to go within, because the entire universe resides within you. You're here on earth to realize that you are God. That's the whole nature. is to know that you are God, is to know that God, you are God and God is you, right? And what that means is that as you work with humility, as you work with the true nature of who you are, there's spirit, right? Spirit comes upon you because you're developing a humility, because you're developing this realization, this expansion of knowing that there's a lot more than this physical reality, and that you are offering compassionate service, and that you are becoming compassionate to yourself. You are being compassionate to others, right? And being able to really flow with love and compassion and happiness. This is what's going to give you all your answers, right? All of those answers are always going to come within yourself. It does not matter what kind of expert you see on YouTube or what book you're reading or anything of that nature. That is not going to tell you who you are, and that's not really going to bring you into that state of happiness, right? Beyond everything else, all a person really wants is to be happy in life, right? And so we look outside for that. We look outside for happiness, and we know that we get disappointed every single time, because that happiness is no more different than chewing on chewing gum that over time then loses its flavor. You spit it out, right? You think you have something exciting, and then you're there, you've achieved it, but then you play with it for a little bit and say, no, this is boring. I've lost interest in it. Because again, we constantly go into the outside world. We're playing with impermanence. So when you're looking for the idea of looking for ETs, and you're looking for star family, and you want to connect with star family in that way, well, again, as you connect within yourself, you'll realize exactly why you're here. Because when I first started, that was my intention. I said, I want to get on board these ships. I want to talk to these ETs. I want to find out what this is all about. It's all exciting. It's all exciting. It's all exciting. And then as I started to do a lot more meditation, as I started to go within myself, I really honestly lost interest in all of that, because that was not the answer, right? We just we want something to really shake up our reality. We may be tired of a lot of the mundane things that we're doing, our 9-to-5 job, seeing how the government is messing around, et cetera, et cetera. We're seeing all that. We want something to really just jolt us out of this reality. But again, that comes in timing. Like I said, if you're not the one that's being able to see that.
Oh, Brad, I lost you again. Oh, sorry,
Awesome
you
again.
broke up just for a split second.
Okay. Yeah. But again, as you go inside and realize that all of this is happening within you, that's what's going to create a greater shift. That's what's going to bring a greater realization to you altogether, is knowing that all the answers are within.
And so this recent slight change of tune from the U.S. government, at least, is that I guess then going back to the representation of oneness is just basically to get everyone kind of to start their own journey if they haven't at this point. Is that what you would say would this symbolize for the government to actually acknowledge at least these different lights in the sky? Is that then going to depends on who's watching it, and they might not be interested in UFOs at all, but now they might just start looking into it, for example?
Well, basically, you have to ask yourself the question, why do I need a government to tell me what's real, right? If you have a personal experience, let's say, for example, you're outside, it's 12 o'clock at night, right? You're just among the stars, and let's say you're on a boat, right, in the middle of a lake, and you're fishing. You're doing midnight fishing. All of a sudden, you see this beautiful light just coming through the sky. It blinks at you several times, and then it dimensionally just slips away. And you're, oh my God, that's amazing. That was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my entire life. So would the question be, oh, geez, I hope the government can confirm that for me? No. You are looking at this experience that was so profound. It was one of the most beautiful experiences of your entire life. Why would you need to concern about whether a government needs to tell you what's real and what's not? Right? That, again, is just part of being asleep. That's just the idea of, again, giving so much power to the mind. If you know that you have these beautiful experiences, because like I've had experiences myself, I've never needed the government to tell me what's real or not one time. People I have talked to, thousands of people all over the world, who have had incredible experiences, far more incredible experiences than I have had, who have actually been able to see beings materialize and dematerialize right in front of them, and then just vanish away. Seeing these beautiful orbs of light, talking to them, communicating them from within inside, telling them that they are God, right? And that's very much what a lot of the common message is. You are God. You are God, and that through you, everything is possible, right? And so again, I don't need a government disclosure to let me know of the experiences that I know I've had, right? It's more so being very, very authentic to your own organic experiences that you've had. You don't need the government to tell you what's real and what's not. Look what's happened with that. Do you think the government is always about you telling you guys truth? No. They, again, will always keep things shut to maintain a type of control. They have agendas, right? But again, we get this big brother attitude saying, well, they have to disclose things, otherwise we're not going to get anywhere. No, you're basically seeing them plummet right now. You're seeing their downfall because we are knowing exactly what that energy within ourselves represents. So the whole idea here is to really honor and just really give a great appreciation for everything that you have had through experiences. I'm sure, again, there's probably a lot of people in your audience who have had sightings on a certain level or had some type of contacts. They may not be able to explain it, and you don't have to, but they know, yeah, this happened to me. I can never really explain it, but I certainly do recall this, and it's something that will never leave me. Congratulations, you've had your own unique contact, and that's something to cherish.
And so what so this whole concept then of disclosure that's been always rambling around, what is that that's supposed to represent, like a global awakening?
Well, a lot of people want that to happen because they feel that now they can talk to anybody about ETs, and it's not going to work that way either. You're basically looking that if you have any particular type of disclosure that's coming out, because a lot of people are talking about it, right? There's a lot of declassified documents that are coming out as well too. There's been a lot of footage being shown on mainstream media and so forth. So, oh my God, they must be getting ready for something really big here. No, not really. They may just tell you something like this. Yeah, we had some sort of situation with an occupant of the vessel that we were not able to identify, but that's all we're going to tell you. Right? And you're like, what the hell? Right? I got gypped. What's going on here? So again, they're going to give it the greatest watering down they possibly can, because again, this is one of the biggest kept secrets in all of humanity, is to know that there is star family that exists beyond our world. Now, the funny thing as well, too, it's not just beyond our world. We have a lot of star family members that are walking upon the earth right now. Right? We have basically, as Adronis has referred to them as, incognito extraterrestrials, right? Incognito star family. And there's millions of them that walk all over the planet, that are very much, again, incognito, that are in secret, and they're secretly doing a lot of these tasks. And their tasks can be as broad as the tasks that we ourselves do. Some of them can be, again, positioned in government. Some of them can just be working in a retail store, right? Some of them can just be living in houses. So again, they're not just beyond our world. They're here as well, too, at the same time. But they're here to be very, very hush-hush. They're very nonchalant. They're here to do their task, and they may just be here for a short amount of time. Once they have fulfilled that task, whatever it may be, they're no longer here, right? And a lot of them look almost identical to us, right? There's a little bit of different facial features as well, too. You know, their eyes may be a little bit larger. They may have different kind of shaped teeth. They may have different skin complexion. Their hair may grow a little bit differently. Their body, their organs within their body may be somewhat different. But again, they could basically just do a little bit of tweaking, right? And that tweaking can happen in many different ways. And then they can just walk down the street right by us, and you would never know that was a member of Star Family. A lot of them, from what I've detected as well too, appear very young, right? There's a lot of them that look like 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, 21 years old. But if you were to actually ask them their chronological age, they'd probably be about 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old, 3,000 years old, right? But they look like teenagers. So there's a lot of them that have been able to work with technology. Some of them can actually do this mentally as well too. They can reverse their age just for a simple thought, or they can go into these stasis pods and basically work with, again, what we commonly refer to as the med beds, and actually have their genetics completely reversed, pertaining to aging, actually have their telomeres grow again, and actually being able to see them as 18-year-old, 19-year-old men and women, right? But they're ancient. So that too is very common. Guys, there's so much happening on our planet. We can't cover it in one episode. but there's a lot, right? It's not just saying, oh, I hope, one day that we'll go beyond the earth and we can see them. Well, it's true that they're beyond the earth, but they're also here. They're right next to you, right? They're walking down the street, especially in metropolises, right? Big cities. You're basically walking around many of them day by day, and you just don't know it, right? So is it preparing for something very big down the road? Possibly, but it's not going to come prematurely. It has to come at the right time.
That reminds me, just recently saw, and forgive me, I don't know what series, is it the New Earth Teaching series? Is that
Mhm.
correct? Okay.
Yeah,
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 there was season two,
Last year.
episode two, and that's very much um, regarding this, what you were talking about. So I encourage everyone to check it out. It's on your YouTube channel right now. So I wanted to actually ask you about if you can go a little bit about the idea of hybrids, about how, if you can, I don't know how, if this is going to open up a whole long subject to cover, but regarding how did they come to be hybrids, and which which ones are they, basically the offsprings of the grays, or are we talking about other races as well?
You're talking about many different types of hybrid races. You're not just looking at the ones that we would refer to as the grays and human hybridization. There's a lot of different hybrids, right? There's hybrid fae, right? You're basically looking at fairies. You're looking at elves. There are hybrids here as well. So you're looking at jinn that can be hybrids. You're looking at reptilians that could be hybrids. You're looking at all these different types of hybrid beings. Now, one of the most commonly talked about ones are the fertilization between the human and grays, right? Now, basically, the grays themselves are not extraterrestrial. Okay, they're extra dimensional beings. So they basically have existed on a different parallel Earth that they basically destroyed. And a lot of it was destroyed through warfare and through a lot of genetic engineering, genetic manipulation. And so their planet, you could say, was basically dying. Their species was dying. And the only way that the last, kind of like the last remnant of them, could actually survive is when they left that Earth, and then they basically did dimensional traveling. So they basically had those ships, and they were actually able to go through space and time, time and space. And it was basically, you're actually traveling through time. What we
Right.
commonly
You
refer
were.
to as years or
I'm sorry.
hundreds of
The
light
last
years and
thing,
so forth, until
just
they
real
come
quick, the
into.
last thing I heard was traveling through time, and then your connection broke up. If you could just go
Oh,
back a few seconds, please.
yeah, yeah. So they travel through space, and they travel through time, or travel through time space, and then it goes through hundreds and hundreds of light years of them traveling through time and space until they come to our world. So they see an Earth that is basically their ancient Earth, you could say, where there's abundant life upon the planet. The nature is still there. It's still very much a living ecosphere. And what they would do is that they would try to forge agreements with the souls of incarnate beings prior to them incarnating. And they would attempt to have soul agreements working together with different souls to see if these people would be volunteers to participate in their hybridization program, because they were very, very desperate to get human assistance to try to preserve their race. And their race, of course, would not be identical to how the original generation was, but they would try to get volunteers in that way. And it would be something that would be an offshoot hybrid race to themselves that would be quote unquote gray human and natural human in that way. So that was very much a lot of the agreements. And I'd say maybe about 10 to 15% of the population of the Earth may have been under that agreement. Less than that, maybe a bit more. That's just kind of the padded range, 10 to 15%. So again, a lot of the visitations, right? So a lot of people refer to them as abductions as well too. Not all of them were of that nature, but some of them were. And some of those particular visitations were coming on board the spacecraft where you would see the grays. Now, the ones that basically did this hybridization program are the ones that look like children. It's the smaller grays. It's not the tall ones. The smaller ones are basically the ones, the originals, that actually still had souls within the body. But because they were dying out, they had a lot of programmable life form bodies or clone bodies. And they would use those clone bodies again to perform tasks, kind of like honeybees in that way. So again, the original grays that basically still had soul, you could say, are dying off because they're not able to reproduce
Right. I think.
certain things within themselves. Simply, that they've had to deal with.
Okay. The connection broke
Yeah,
up.
go
I
ahead.
think we got your point. So basically, then some of these people that, let's say, I have a close friend of mine that often talks about a hybrid child. Are they then supposed to work with these different hybrids, or not necessarily? They just kind of are there to provide the genetic material, and then they kind of move on. Or can you please speak a little bit about that?
Well, again, you can't really discuss this generically because everybody has their own contracts pertaining to things. They have their own destiny to follow in that way. A lot of the people whom I've contacted with do not have to have the hybrid children in their life, right? So basically, in that sense, their agreement was just basically to bring them into life. They have basically fulfilled that agreement. Now, again, if they want to have a continued relationship with their children, that often comes very telepathically, right? They'll start to feel a connection with the hybrid kids on board ships. They'll start painting pictures of them. They'll start drawing them out. They'll start getting impressions. They may get names of the children, or they may actually give names to the children as well, too. But it all depends. Everybody has their own particular form of destiny relating to what they're here to do. But a lot of them are basically the agreement is just to bring these children into life. After that, they've really fulfilled everything they needed to do. And maybe there are those who do want to have some type of connection with their children. Some of them do basically go off into dream time, and they start interacting with them on board ships. So basically, you're going into your dream body, and you're going onto these ships, and you're actually watching the children, and you're able to see other children as well too. You actually get to, Jonas refers to these ships as learning centers, and they're kind of like ark craft. They're very big, and they're able to go on board these ships and start learning a lot of different things. They can learn a lot about skills. They can learn about history, education. It goes on and on. So basically, they're being educated on these ships. Now, these ships do not belong to the hybrid children. They're basically, in that sense, being borrowed. So they can go on different ships as well too. It's not just the ships of the Greys. It can be other races as well too that they formed a kinship with. And they can go on board these different ships and start learning these different things. So they're just part of a different galactic community where they can go on different ships. They can meet different races. They can learn from them as well too. And there may be an extended relationship that they may have with their biological human mother, for example, that they may want to pursue along with her.
So eventual interactions, I guess there's not a specific race that kind of has an agreement to say, hey, we will be the first ones to say hello, or because there's such a wide variety of them out there.
Well, that's the whole idea, is that humanity has 22 different ET races, genetics within our own genome, right? So you're looking at many different races altogether, right? There's been a lot of talk about the idea of what could be the hybrid races in that sense. There is that, but the whole idea is that people are having their own organic contacts for that person or for that group. The hybrids would be the ones that would come first to them. But no, basically, when we have contact, when that time comes, you're going to see many different races. It's not just going to be one race. Oh, this one big race is going to be the one that's going to come to you and reveal everything to you. No. Like I said, there's a lot of talk about that being the hybrid race, and said, no, that's not going to happen. But they will give an opportunity for the hybrid children to come forward and basically no longer be behind a veil when that time comes. So they can go and they can visit their mom, for example, and start having a life with her once there is a type of contact where that would be made possible. But again, as soon as the veil drops and first contact can actually take place, and again, I don't really know when that's happening. There's the theory of maybe 2050-ish, somewhere around there. But that's just, again, a rough shoot of a number. It all just depends on how things go. But again, as that happens, you're looking at a sky full of ships, right? And it's full of ships right now. We just don't know that that's there. They're basically in their own pocketed dimension of reality. And it's basically overlaid relating to our physical reality. It's very, very simple for them to do this, right? It's simple quantum mechanics. It's simple vibrational science. And they can basically just veil themselves, put themselves in these pocket dimensions, and just watch you, and you would never know that they are there. There's some people who have actually been able to go into psychedelic experiences. And as they go into psychedelic experiences, they can actually look and they actually see these other beings just kind of walking around the reality grid. It's like they're going into these deeper states of vision. And they actually see these beings that are kind of like monitoring that person that's basically going into psychedelic experience. They actually turn around, they see this person, oh geez, they see us, and then pulls up another veil and vanishes away, right? That's exactly what's happening, right? These are all just veils. And there are so many different beings, so many different star family members, ETs, etc., that are just caught up in these veils. And they're, like I said, they can be around you right now. And they're just doing they're in a dimensional veil. You cannot see them. And as you go to sleep, they may do some tweaking on you. They may do some tweaking on your genetics. They may work with different phases of memory, etc., and are doing work upon you, and you would never know it. So, like I said, it's not just the idea of going beyond the earth and thinking that they're there, because they are, but a lot of them are here with us, right? A lot of it can be star family. Some of it can be beings that do not feel too flattering to you, right? And some of them have agendas as well, too. So it's very much a mixed bag. And like I said, everybody has their own experience. It's impossible to really give this a type of genetic context, or generic context, right?
I don't want to kind of go negative here, but usually the association with the reptilians is people always associated with the negative. Can you maybe speak a little bit about them and who they are, or for example, just one particular thing that when I first heard it, kind of it stayed with me for quite a while, and of course I don't see it as this fearful thing anymore. It's still a little bit concerning, but I was hoping you could maybe speak on that. When I first heard that some reptilians were thinking about just kind of using us like we use cattle, and do you know anything about that that you can maybe speak to?
Well, it's not just putting it on reptilians, right? Humans think that way as well too, right? A lot of the ones that are basically closer to the tip of this pyramid are ones who think that way as well too. That pretty much every person in the population of the planet is basically just cattle, right? And just basically being used as a resource, because a lot of them just think that we're just absolutely stupid, right? So it's not just looking at the Draco. It's not just looking at the reptilians and stuff. There are reptilian beings that are so unbelievably loving that they would never think of doing things like that. There are indigenous reptilians living inside our planet that would not consider doing anything like that, right? You have different factions, right? You have different groups in that way. So there have been certain groups that have been based upon conquest, and basically they have claimed thousands of worlds, right? Earth was just basically another notch on their belt, a very big notch because of what the Earth represents. But again, it's not looking like that as saying that's all what reptilians do, because that's no more different than any human races out there thinking, oh, well, that's all human races are. They just don't take care of their planet. They don't take care of each other. They don't know themselves. What good are they, right? And we cannot generalize that for everybody, right? So we cannot generalize these things with reptilians in that way. So like I said, there's Draco royals in that way. And there are Draco royals that, again, are bent on conquest. And there are Draco royals that are actually helping out a lot of different alliances, being able to predict every single one of these moves that these conquestors, as I'll call them, were very, very committed to doing, to basically try and enslave the planet in that way. But that's not what's happening anymore. Basically, Earth is going into such a bright future. There is such a bright time ahead for us. We're seeing a lot of the dark players, as I've termed them as well too, starting to fade out of the scenes, right? There's a lot of things that's happening. We have to remember that everything that's happening here is happening above, right? As above, so below. So there has really been kind of like a spiritual war that has been happening for a very, very long time. Edgar Casey talked about this in his readings, where he talks about kind of a spiritual war in heaven in that way. Basically, we could refer to them as archons or something of that nature. But really, there's a lot more deeper stuff to it than just looking at reptilians, looking at Draco. That's kind of like the mid-level of the pyramid, right? If you really want to know what a lot of the big culprit is behind everything, it's the ego, right? The ego really is the biggest virus that there is, that we all carry. And one of the greatest representations of the ego is often artificial intelligence, right? It's basically a lot of these Draco, a lot of these different groups that are hell-bent on conquest are often being led by AI, right? A lot of it is artificial intelligence. If you guys are familiar with like the Borg off Star Trek, right? It's very much like that. There's a lot of AI that's there, and all it does is just basically compute cold logic. It's very, very cold. It's heartless. doesn't have any emotion whatsoever. All it cares about is the material world. And there's a lot of races, such as the Draco, that basically won't even rely upon their organic components anymore. They basically swap out their organic components, and now they're basically just very much like a machine, right? And they use a lot of transhumanism agendas because they basically are seen as prophets for this AI. So basically, like I said, ego would be the highest degree, would be the tip of the pyramid, because that is everything that represents an antichrist, right? Everything that represents cold logic. There's no feeling, there's no remorse. Everything is just physical, physical, physical. That's the nature of an inverted pentagram. So, like I said, it's not just looking at basically profiling a certain race, right? You're looking at certain groups. Certain groups have that particular type of mentality. But like I said, there's such a big cleanup happening, not only on the earth right now, but beyond the earth, right? There's so much cleanup happening. There's a false grid that's being torn down as well, too, that have basically caused a lot of deception, a lot of holographic inserts and holography, basically just causing a lot of mayhem with people who think that they're channeling angelic beings and so forth, but there's another agenda behind it all. So it's basically a deception grid. So that deception grid is being taken down right now. A lot of our old leaders, politics, world leaders are being taken down right now. There is such a gigantic takedown that is taking place on the earth and beyond it, that within the next couple of years, we're looking at a very, very different earth. We're looking at it's basically, again, as the Bible says, heaven and new earth. It's exactly what's happening right now.
You know, I was going to ask, so this almost script like happening all over the world, is it these specific humans that kind of align with that, with that idea? I guess you can call them Illuminati, occult, whatever. Is it that, or is it really that it just so happens on this planet that with all these, as I said the other day, with all these countries with individual presidents and their own goals, that they all started singing at the same tune. Can you speak a little bit on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, everything really is a script when you look at the mainstream media, right? When you're looking at all this news that's coming out, you're seeing how basically every anchor on the mainstream media is just basically saying the same thing. Oh, and here's this story, and then they say the exact same thing. It's all a big script, right? Because the MSM mainstream media, again, I don't really need to tell you guys this. You guys are pretty much already aware of this. But yeah, it's just one big facade. It's one big show. It's one big reality show. It's one big movie, right? It's not what's happening with the world at all. That is the conditioning, right? That is just looking at everything and saying if people are being programmed in this media, and what they're doing is they're being deprogrammed by this media as well too. That's eventually what's going to happen, right? There's going to be so much more leakages and the idea of whistleblowing taking place, data dumps, etc. And every mainstream media is going to fall in line, because basically if this mainstream media has been happening for such a long time, spewing all this garbage, it's going through a transitional state right now where it's going to be going under new management. And now it's going to be spewing deprogramming. Right? So that's really what it's going to do, but it has to do it in a very soft way. But again, these are just the gatekeepers. This is just keeping around the gate, and you're not allowed to look what's inside the gate, because you have all this mainstream media, you have all this press, you have all these different forms of safeguards that are basically keeping you out about what's happening in the core. And what's happening in the core right now are silent takedowns of ancient secret societies that are basically satanic worshipers that have been worshiping devilish energies for many thousands of years, and they're being taken down at an alarming rate. They're basically just being completely folded up and taken out of the equation altogether. But again, the entire strategy is to do this silently. Because if you do this silently, then there's no risk of exposure from the plans that you're trying to do to try and get this through quickly. Because there's even larger things that are to come in the next couple of years that are going to be very, very positive. Right? A lot of people are just worried to think, oh, Brad, we may have another coronavirus coming together. No. Right? All they're trying to spin right now is a type of climate change psyop. That's not going to last very long either. So that's gonna fall on its butt altogether. All of these things are basically just being taken down, right? It's kind of like if you're looking at a cosmic administration, right? You could look at this as the one will, the divine will in that sense. And all of these players want to try and submit these applications and say, let's do this agenda, right? Cosmic administration set that and says, denied. Well, what about this application? Denied. What about this one? Denied. So all of these things that these key players are trying to do is just constantly being denied. They're able to play it out for a very small amount of time until it reaches a certain type of climax. Once it reaches that climax, it folds upon itself and saying, well, we barely got this thing off the ground. Well, that's the point. It's only allowed to come out to a certain point to wake enough people that it needs to wake up. And as that happens, there's the stamp that comes down and saying denied. So a lot of people are still very much in fear about what's taking place. But again, it goes back to that saying, you're just afraid of what you don't understand. There's a lot of things that are happening down the road. And like I said, it's a very, very amazing time, right? It's intense, yes. For a lot of people, this feels like it's come out of the blue. Well, not really. This has been building up for centuries. This has been building up for millennia. And now it's coming out right now. And all of this needs to basically face the music. All these things need to play out to a certain degree before it gets completely folded up and thrown out of the picture, right? It kind of goes back to like what Jesus said. It's like basically we're taking the weeds out from the wheat. We're letting the weeds and the wheat grow up to a point, and then the harvesters are going to come in and start pulling out all these weeds and throwing them into the fire to be burned. That's exactly what's happening right now. So like I said, over the next couple of years, we're seeing a very new heaven and earth being created.
Well, Brett, I have one more question I want to ask you, and then I was thinking about for us to go into Q&A. Would that be all right?
That's fine.
Okay, so everyone watching, you're in for a treat. I talked to Brad earlier, and he's going to bring in a journalist to answer questions. So I want to give you this opportunity. If you have any questions, to please get them ready in chat. Please use the 3 stars before you put your question down, so that way I know it's directed towards the journalist. Or if you have a question towards Brad, but I would recommend to wait, hold this question for you later. To first kind of any questions that they might have for journalists to get those out of the way first. Brad, I was asking you, what do you think it would be good to adjourn these questions first, get that done over with, and then any questions for you later?
Any questions for me later? Yeah, if you want to do that. So like I said, I can probably just bring Adronis in for a few questions, and then I can pop back in again. And if you have questions for me, then we can do that.
Okay, good deal. All right. So anyway, so all those who have been here before, remember 3 stars and then your question in the chat. You can also ask a question directly by joining the Telegram group, and we have it going on live right now. It's actually simultaneously streaming to Telegram as well. So simply raise your hand, and then I would know that you want to ask it, and I'll put you in my queue. So the question that I wanted to ask you, Brad, was regarding this perceived split. You know, there's people that are for mass and against. To you, no. This is for you. This is my last question before we go into Q&A for everyone else. So this perceived split that I've been seeing, you know, mass, no mass, vaccine, no vaccine, you know, Republican, Democrat, this and that. Is this sort of the beginning to this I guess this split Earth or new Earth? Beginning of that? I know Dolores Kenneth talked about that, and I've heard you talk about it in the past before. Can you please speak a little bit on that?
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Is we're basically seeing everybody kind of going on their own square, right? So you have people who are maskers over here. You have people who are non-maskers over here. You have people who are vaccinators over here. You have non-vaccinators over here. You have people who are in support of Trump. You have people who are in support of Biden. You have all of these different divisions coming together. And that's basically creating a fragmentation, right? You're looking at the Earth being split all these different ways, right? And it's basically countless. We would not be able to calculate how many squares, so to speak, are there. But that's basically what's happening. It's kind of like everybody's going into those tunnels about what they believe reality is. And it's eventually leading into a harvest. And that harvest is basically taking that person to the appropriate Earth based upon what they feel reality is. So again, you're looking at reality, looking at Earth basically being split many different ways, right? Some people say, well, it's 3rd density to 4th density. You can look at it in that way. But really what it is just that everybody's kind of going into their own tunnels. They're looking at their own tunnels. They feel this is what reality represents. And everybody just splits their own way. But like I said, because you're the only one there, you're never going to others, right? You will always have the appropriate representation of your reflections with you, no matter what reality you go into, right? So it'll be a very seamless thing. It'll be something that you just won't even notice, right? We won't even notice that there's a big shift. We'll notice that how it starts to shift. We start to see how it transforms, right? The person feels that, they're not for masks, they're not for vaccines, they're not for politics in that sense. Then over time, they will notice that as they go deeper into this tunnel, a lot of those things just start to fade away. They just start to fade away, and that is no longer a part of their reality anymore. They see the transition of that phasing out. But again, to them, it's a natural thing. It's a seamless transition that takes place. And that will happen to everybody. That, again, is how powerful consciousness is. We can never see any glitches in consciousness. We cannot see any glitches through this entire reality that we're a part of. So yes, that is exactly what's happening, but it's going to move into such a very seamless transition. It'll just feel like a very natural journey to you. It won't be something you say, hey, wait a minute, right? You're looking at this and you're seeing how this transition is going, because it's working through your consciousness to go that way. And that's how it will be seamless.
So basically, then the things that aren't in our reality anymore, we would just kind of remember them as memories. Or like, oh, yeah, I remember how this used to be.
If you hold on to those things, that's what remains, right? So what you resist persists, right? So if you're basically still worrying about masks or still worrying about vaccines, then that's still going to be a part of your reality. That's not going to be taken away from you, right? The universe will not take away what you're still holding on to. So again, what you still validate through your reality, whether you think it's great or not, is still going to be a part of your reality until you give it up. So when you give it up, that's what, again, is going to lead into this transitional phase. It's like going into a state of beingness. You go into beingness and you realize that you are the self, and that you're not attached to anything. And you see through transition all of this stuff starting to phase away. I'm going a little bit deeper into self-realization here, which I know is not really our topic, but nonetheless, that is what's taking place. Whatever you're willing to let go of, that is the very thing that's going to transition out of your life.
Okay. Well, Brad, thank you for that. So I think we're ready for Q&A with Adronis. So please do what you need to do.
Okay, so it'll just take me a moment to connect with Adronis. Now, normally, when I channel him, you kind of see me doing this, right, where I basically do the rotation, or the orbiting, as I call it. I'm going to try not to do that this time, so I'm going to try and stay centered in my frame here. But when Adronis comes through, you'll kind of notice a bit of a voice change in that way. And basically what's happening is when I'm going into the channeling state, my soul's not leaving my body. I'm not going into trance. Okay, this is not a trance channeling state. This is basically a heightened connectivity channeled state. Okay, so it's basically a channeling state of heightened activity. So like I said, back with the example of the radio dial, I'm just tuning into a particular station. That's Adronis' station. He comes through and I receive his transmission. And basically through the brain, in that way, it's getting these heightened connections, and this information is flowing through. So I'm basically being slightly rewired, you could say, to bring in his information, but not in a trance state. It's just a state of heightened connection and heightened activity. So anyways, I will go ahead and bring Adronis in now, and we'll begin the Q&A. Here we go. Terra Soul Star Sirius Adronis. We are here. At this time, we bid you greetings, and thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius, sending love, appreciation, gratitude to all who are tuning in to this broadcast through your internet collective consciousness. We say hello to all. How may we assist you today?
Well, greetings, Adronis. Thank you for being here. So the first question comes from Fab22. It says, is there a specific time frame and specific group of people with which the ETs interact and reveal the agenda to?
Well, that all depends. Now, again, there are those who are, as you would say, incarnated as specialists upon the planet. So because a lot of the work that they are doing would involve more of a closer connection pertaining to their star family, where they may be much more aware of, in that sense, the mutual compatible relationship between the host that is incarnated here on the earth and the civilization that is working together with them. So they may go on board ship as well too, maybe not physically, but astrally. And they may actually start to walk around and start to talk to a lot of their star family in that sense through that particular transient state of being. But again, it all depends. There's really no generic groups that we can really share with you, other than those in that sense who we can basically specify as specialists. But again, even specialists have different agendas and they have different states of awareness that would therefore diversify their relationship pertaining to other star family. Now, again, you have to understand that it is very much quite commonly arranged like this. Let's say, for example, that you yourself once had a body on board a spacecraft, and let's just call them the Pleiadians because, again, that's very, very popular for people. So that you have this Pleiadian body here, and you're above the Earth on this beautiful spherical spacecraft, and you're looking down. Now, you are in meditation at this time. All of a sudden, you feel the call that the earth is calling to you and saying, we would welcome you upon the earth to do this, to be in favor of this, to assist with this. Will you help? You get up out of meditation. You walk into the stasis bay. You open up a pod. You go inside. That pod now closes. It now fills up with fluids similar to what you would know as amniotic fluid. There is a technological process that therefore creates sound vibration that, as you would say, disembodies the soul from the body. That soul now goes onto the earth and now appropriately incarnates into the womb of the mother of the child that is now born upon the planet and is now going to carry out the task that they have agreed to volunteer for. And now they, in their later point of life as a human being, are in a hypnotic session. And now the speaker is talking to this person and saying, what made you want to come to Earth? And now they flash back to that moment. The Earth called to me. She wanted me to come down to perform this task, and I agreed. You didn't give it a second thought? Not one bit. I went right into the stasis pod. My physical Pleiadian body is in suspended animation, and I have incarnated here in this body to perform this mission. That is what I'm here to do. So that is giving you just an idea, one example of why many of you have come down to assist, to incarnate here. I heard the call that the earth was giving to me, and through my dedication of service, I went and I incarnated and I came onto this world and I incarnated into this body, and I'm now fulfilling my tasks. Now, that one may be aware that their star family is watching over them, or they may not be aware nonetheless, but they're being guided internally. So again, as we stated, it varies to person from what we would term as a specialist. All right? We thank you for your question.
Thank you for that. Robert, on Telegram, you are unmuted. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, maybe we're going to have to wait till later. So we're going to switch back over to the chat. Val is asking, when did the elongated skull beings come to Peru, Egypt, and the Black Sea? Why did they leave us?
Well, understand that the group that you speak of holds what you would know as Anunnaki connections. So when you're looking at the elongated skulls in that sense, you could refer to as the long-headed beings, particularly from that of Capella, they again represented that of Anunnaki connections. They fulfill fulfilled their tasks. Now, some of them, in that sense, went off into performing their own particular states of agendas. And what you're seeing there is the result of cataclysms that took place at that time. So there are diverse groups. There are groups in that sense that knew that they were here to, again, teach something to humanity, educate something to humanity, therefore conclude that task and then leave, returning back into their vessels and leaving the earth. There are those who are left behind because some of them, in that sense, pertain to, again, agendas that may have not have been in humanity's favor. They wanted to work much more with genetic manipulation. They wanted to work much more deeper with the earth. They wanted to fulfill their own agendas, and that is not what they signed up. That was not really their intention of signing up here for earth and to assist humanity. So over time, as they remained, cataclysms took place and basically wiped them out. And so many of them, in that sense, would be what you would term as ones who are trying to pose themselves off as gods so that humanity would worship them. So again, not all of the elongated beings, elongated head beings from Capella were like that, but just the ones that remained. And again, they were being treated as royalty. They were being treated as gods. And again, this would lead to the idea of mistreatment with a great deal of human beings. Because again, many of these beings would try to usurp a great deal of resources that did not belong to them, nor again was that part of any agenda. So therefore, cataclysms took place upon the earth, from what you would know as, in that sense, as great weather conditions or great floods in that particular way. It could also represent the idea of instant ice ages or the idea of cold fusion technology that can also take place, just depending upon whereabouts on the planet. But in regards to the nature of Peru, a lot of this had to do with significant weather changes. And again, this is what led to the idea of some of them actually remaining upon the planet as fossilized beings, because again, they were the remnants of those that had different agendas that were not in favor of humanity, of the earth, or cosmic administration.
Thank you. The next question is from Paul asking, what were those knobs on ancient megaliths walls around the planet? What was their function?
Ancient walls, you would have to be more specific.
Unfortunately, I can't give you any more info. It was just a question, so we're going to move on to the next one.
Certain knobs in that sense would actually represent the degrees of footholds, so that the walls itself could be climbed, so that the idea of a construct could be built. That's quite the common usage pertaining to such knobs. But basically, in that sense, they are outlets, or again, they are footholds, so that the bricks themselves, or the large blocks themselves, could be climbed, and therefore working together in regards to certain construction fashions to further fashion the wall. That's one example of what they can represent.
Thank you for that. Guy C7 is asking, why do people feel the need to judge others? How can we lessen our judgment of ourselves and others?
Because they do not see themselves. They simply see separation. They see individuality. They see another person who they feel is in no way in association with them. It is basically, as you would say, blinded by ignorance. So the whole idea here is really that you are not responsible for how another person sees you. You are not responsible for how they perceive you. You're only responsible for yourself. So they again represent a good example of saying that if I'm seeing someone that is judging quite often because they see everybody in separation, then again, all I really need to do is exercise that compassion. I'm just going to give compassion to the entire situation. I'm going to go into this state of stillness. I'm going to feel free, unbounded by the entire situation, and let it be what it is. And that's how you set yourself free. So you're putting all of that, yes, love, compassion, joy, and harmony together towards that situation. But really what you're doing is you're just going into the state of center. You're going into your beingness. And through there, all there is stillness. Through there, all there is quiet. Through there, all there is peace and happiness and changelessness. Therefore, as you go there, you are no longer attached to any situation that would represent that. You see, one who is very, very upset at another person, when you view that and you react, you're in the similar reality to that person regarding that other who they have a problem with, because you're still seeing an involvement there. You're still seeing an attachment there. So therefore, you're involved with that same illusion. It's again, just as we stated, you go into your stillness, you go into your happiness, you go into your center. You realize all of this is happening through you. You realize that you are pure consciousness, and you go into that stillness, and now everything melts away, and you let it be as it is. So that is, in that sense, tranquilizing the entire experience of thought, the entire experience of mind, and therefore relaxing your being to the point where you are no longer affected. You are immune. You are imperturbable relating to that situation all in all. And that's you being the example of one who has transcended it. All right?
Thank you for that. Robert Lemke is asking, I've had some contact with some CE6 and possibly CE5, and would you be able to tell me who my star family is?
We would not. That would need to be something that you would need to explore within yourself, because you have to understand that your star family is not just representing one particular civilization. You have to understand that you, as pure consciousness, represents all life. Now, if you really want to know more about that particular group, we're not the one that's connecting to that group for you, because we're not involved with that. So you would need to look into that. If you decide that you want to know this particular civilization that you feel connected with, then we would suggest you go back into that moment and you meditate on what you experienced. And it's like you're stepping outside of what you have seen, and now you're going deeper. You're going deeper into that craft. You're going deeper into those experiences. And now you're simply posing the question, what civilization would that spacecraft be there? And the answer may be, who told you that it was a civilization involved? And again, that's something that you have to look at as well too, because many of the sightings that you see may not even represent a civilization. You are again looking at a type of consciousness, a type of energy that you're not able to label. But you're simply looking more so at a mirror reflection to you, that it's just you upon that ship. It's just you as that ball of light. It's just you as that plasma. It's just you as that pure state of energy. So again, this is why we say, if you're just looking at it in one-mindedness to feel like it has to be some type of civilization, you're missing the point. Basically, what you could say instead is, what is your relationship to me? What is your relationship to me? And as you state that, this is what's going to bring you into a greater state of profoundness. So dwell on that. All right? We thank you.
Thank you for that. Clark Thompson is asking, what are Lemuria and Atlantis years of beginning and ending of civilizations in BC years?
Well, again, if you're looking at Atlantis, we do not have the exact dates for you. But if you're looking into the idea of Atlantis, this was approximately between 12,500 to 14,000 years ago, to around the end of its last age, leading into its decline. When you're looking into Lemuria, Lemuria, in that sense, to a degree, still coexisted along with Atlantis. It was not the end of the Lemurian civilization when Atlantis was coming through, but there was a greater declining of Lemurian civilization at that time. But again, you would understand that the birth time to where Lemuria itself happened would go well over 150,000 years of your past. All right?
Great, thank you. Claudine G is asking, how do we recognize hybrids that are walking among us on Earth?
Some of you cannot. You have to feel it out in that way. And you're not going to go to every single person saying, are you a hybrid? Are you a hybrid? Are you a hybrid? Some of you will not know. Because again, it depends really about where you are on the planet. And it depends in regards to what you're here to do. Some of you will not discover it. And that's the point. They are not here to shout from the rooftops to say, oh, by the way, I'm an incognito extraterrestrial. Or by the way, I'm a hybrid in that sense. Some of you can tell because you have that natural ability within yourself. You're looking through the heart. You're not looking to the outside. If you are constantly looking outside of reality, you are going into a weakening. If you truly want to know how you see a reflection of yourself. It comes right here. It is the ability for you to develop your heart. It is the ability for you to clean your heart. It is the ability for letting the light shine through the heart and therefore connect with another heart. And for those of you who, again, are working upon yourselves, you're doing your inner work, you're clearing out all conflict, you're again neutralizing yourself, just as we spoke earlier, your heart becomes clean. As you have a clean heart, you are being told things that you're not even looking for. Because again, your heart is the true mind. It is the true intelligence. It is that which leads to God. So if you truly want to understand who you really are, the heart is the place to start. All right?
Thank you. Jonas, would it be all right to ask a few more questions?
We can take 3 more questions before we conclude.
Okay. And just real quick for everyone watching, if you are on Telegram, please make sure you raise your hand by tapping that button so I know you actually want to ask it. Otherwise, I'm just going to go down the list in chat. So Donna Evans is asking, who built the temple of Pumapunku? How old is it? And what we would see down beneath to the temple chambers underground Pumapunku?
Humanity was responsible for the development of such a temple, and it goes back past the time of what you would know as 15,000 years. And the idea of secret vaults, well, we really cannot tell you because those are seen as sacred, so we cannot jeopardize that.
Thank you.
Your ancient ancestors, in that sense, still hold a lot of that in secrecy, and it is not time for humanity to know that in public. That will come appropriately through an appropriate ambassador that will show themselves in time. All right?
Thank you. The next question is from Carter. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the last name, but from Carter asking, are we going to see the financial system shift soon? And what will the step towards global financial liberation look like?
Well, there really is no such thing as financial liberation because that's a system. You cannot have liberation through a system. You're having changes through a system, and all it really is doing is that it's a step up from that. Now, that is already taking place, the idea of a transformation of the financial system. A lot of it is happening quietly behind the scenes. So basically, you will notice that a lot of your fiat currency that may be here on the surface, there's a lot more that's happening underground or beneath it or beyond it in that particular way. Some of this will lead to what you would know as digital currency. Some of this may also lead to resource-backed currency, similar to what you would know as precious ores that could function as legal tender. So a lot of that is being worked out behind the scenes, but on the surface here, it does appear like fiat currency is still happening. But again, that is on the verge of breaking down, imploding. We have often stated that within the next couple of years, you will notice much greater implosion pertaining to fiat currency and a lot more reliance pertaining to digital currency and as well as, in that sense, backed currency through resources in time, and then within the next couple of years.
All right. Great, thank you. And then the last question then from Wend55WC saying, Jonas, hi, Wend here. Will Solar Flash be in the next few months or before? Thanks.
All right. You firstly have to understand what the sun is, because many do not. So we would suggest that you go to Brad's YouTube channel and you type on through his channel the true nature of the sun. And now that you know what the true nature of the sun is, you will know that a solar flash is not at all in your future. All right? We thank you. We thank you for your interactions. We thank you for your questions. I am Adronis Sirius. One moment, please, as we now return to the conduit. Goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.
Well, Brad, thank you very much. That was wonderful. I appreciate you taking the time and to channel Jonas and to help answer some questions out there. So greatly appreciate it. So, Brad, if I just wanted to then leave it for you towards the end to just please tell us what can one find on your site. I assume they can also contact you there, and I figured we'll conclude with that.
Yeah, well, you can go to my website. My main website is newearthteachings.com, right? So that is where my private sessions are. If you guys want to have a private session with Adronis, or just want to talk to me, or you want to do some healing sessions, record readings, all of that is on newearthteachings.com. The link to my YouTube channel is there as well too, right? You can just type in, if you go on YouTube, just type in Brad Johnson New Earth Teachings, and you'll see my channel there. You can subscribe to it. There's a lot of great videos. There's over 1,000 videos on my channel, so there's a lot of content there. And again, my second website is healingcodes.com. That is a spiritual technology that you can use for advanced levels of healing. And again, you can find out more information on the website there. That's healingcodecards.com. But again, check out both websites. Check out the YouTube. There's a lot of great information for you to look into.
And also, the specific links are in the description below the video. If you're watching this on Facebook, there should be above the video, so you can just click there and it'll take you directly there in case you didn't catch all that, but it's easily available for you in the descriptions. So, Brad, again, thank you. I'm really happy we were able to connect. I appreciate it. I can't thank you enough, and I hope to I guess hopefully for us to connect in the future again, if it's not too much trouble. I know you're a busy man, but I would also just real quick, I would also really recommend them watching your series, because I haven't gone through the first one regarding the sun. I kind of skipped ahead just because there was the latest one, and I had a bit more time to watch the season 2, episode 2, which was more about the ET contact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And yeah, I would
You
really
have to check.
recommend.
There's 4 new episodes of the second season. I did a first season a while back that had 4 episodes as well too. The new season, which is just a lot better production quality, has a lot of these great episodes in it. So episode 2, like Jonas was saying about the true nature of the sun, be good for you guys to look into that one. And then of course there's the newest one, which is Off-World Civilizations. That's the longest episode so far. And of course, episode 1 is about unseen forces. Episode 3 is about the amalgamation effect. So all 4 episodes are very informative, but the newest one is about off-world civilizations.
All right. Well, Brad, thank you. Everyone else watching, I appreciate it. Check out Brad's website, and so have a good weekend. Tune in next week on Wednesday. We're going to have open lines at 7 p.m. again. I'm not sure exactly who I'm going to have on Friday as a guest, but I'll keep you posted. Probably will know by Wednesday. So again, everyone else watching, I appreciate spending the evening with us. Have a good weekend, good evening, and take care.
Thank you.